Welcome to the March 1st, 2021 meeting of the Town of Saugerties Zoning Board of Appeals. I would now like to ask our ZBA Secretary, Kevin Freeman, hosting this meeting, to make any necessary announcements.
Thanks, Edie. Everybody, it gets a little noisy sometimes when people are unmuted. It might not be heard, but there's background sound. So I might have to mute you, and I cannot unmute you, however, so you'll have to take care of that yourself and pay attention to your status. Additionally, people that are calling in on the phone, to mute or unmute is *6. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you please start recording now?
Done.
I now call the March 1st meeting of the Saugerties Zoning Board of Appeals to order at 7:03. I will begin with a roll call of the members of the zoning board. I am Jeannie Goldberg. I'm chairperson of the zoning board, ZBA. Also present are Patty Kelly, vice chairperson, Tim Scott, waving, thank you. Joe Mayone on the phone.
I'm here.
Henry Rua.
Yes, Gene.
Hi, Henry. And our alternate, Holly Scott. Strut. Sorry, Holly.
I'm here.
Thank you. Since we need 3 members present to form a quorum, and we have 5 regular board members plus our 1 alternate member present, I'm declaring a quorum and the meeting may begin. There are 3 items for tonight's meeting. I am going to reverse the order of the agenda for tonight again. The last item on our agenda under old business is Tarpon Towers Verizon Wireless at the Mount Marion Fire Department. At this time, I wish to announce that this application is on hold, but is being kept open at the applicant's request. There will be no discussion of this application tonight. Anyone who is attending this meeting for this application is therefore free to leave if you wish. Although you are certainly welcome to stay, all of our meetings are open to the public. Please keep informed by reading the ZBA webpage on the Town of Saugerties website. The second item on our agenda is a public hearing for Michael McIsaac, 1632 Old Kings Highway, Saugerties. The SBL is 8.4-7-37. The zoning district is residential hamlet, high density residence. The applicant is requesting an 11-foot side yard area variance so that they may construct an 8-foot by 14-foot carport. The side yard setback, their requirement is 25 feet. So they need an 11-foot variance. May I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing for this variance request?
I make the motion.
Motion by Patty. A
I'll
second?
second.
Who's calling? Who's seconding? Joe?
I second.
Joe seconds. Is there any discussion of this? All in favor?
Aye.
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 3. Joe?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 4. And I say aye. Our public hearing for McIsaac is now open. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak about this application? Hearing no response, I assume there is no one here who wishes to speak about this variance application. At our February 1st meeting, we voted to set this variance request as a type 2 under SECRA. Is the board hearing no public response? I will ask if the McIsaacs have anything they would like to say.
You're muted, Deborah.
Muted, Deborah.
So I'm speaking on behalf of Mike, who presented in February, and I just wanted to reiterate, we're grateful that we have the opportunity to present this way, respect our neighbors, and go through the whole process. And our desire for the carport is to actually add property value and do it in a way that brings more beauty to the property rather than putting up like a standalone plastic kind of housing park, but to make it more permanent that follows the line of our garage. So I'm just grateful that it appears that it passed. So thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just ask whether or not all the cards have been returned for the record?
Okay.
No, not Deborah. I was asking Jean.
Jeannie's going to ask Kevin.
Yeah, I would say Mike sent me a photograph of the card and the list that he worked off of, and said that he was dropping off the green cards at the town hall.
So everybody that was a neighbor responded?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, I would just say I made a site visit, and there seems to be at least one big evergreen to the right of where you want to put the carport. Is
Yes.
that true?
Yes,
Is that on your property or on your neighbor's property?
that's on our property.
That's on your property. So it would be blocking from your neighbors the carport, basically.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else on the ZBA have any questions? Then if we are ready to vote on this, I will read again. In making its determination, the zoning board of appeals shall take into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the variance is granted, as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. In making such determination, the board shall consider the following 5 points. And we will discuss this before we vote on giving the variance. The first point is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created.
Can
Patty?
I also have been to the property several times just because I know Mike and Deborah, but I do not think that there is any kind of detriment to the neighborhood. And my only concern would be if the neighbor right next door had objected, and apparently they did not. And so I see no detriment whatsoever.
I agree, and would add that the large tree next to the proposed carport will present a buffer to the property next door. The next is whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No. I don't believe so.
No, this
Yeah,
was,
I don't see any way either. I don't see anything that would be a feasible alternative at all for that property.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the third one is whether the requested area variance is substantial. They are asking for an 11-foot side yard area variance.
Well, it's less than 50%. I don't see it as being substantial.
That's Joe, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Joe. I agree.
I agree also.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I think it'll do just the opposite, as was presented by Mike originally. It will give a house to the vehicle, and it will not be outside. And I think that makes a more pleasing environment for both the neighbors and everybody else that passes by.
I agree, and I certainly prefer it to the plastic alternative.
Right.
Number 5 is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created.
No, I mean,
Yes, but I don't see it as a problem.
unless they knew before they ever moved in there that they were going to have a need for a vehicle like this, and that they were going to need to have a garage for it. I just, even if it was self-created, it's not really important in this case, I don't think.
I agree. Would someone like to make a motion to grant this variance? 11 foot.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Tim and Joe seconded it.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Patty,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The variance is granted. The 11-foot variance is granted. You will get a notification of this within a week.
Okay, thank you so
Okay.
much, everybody.
welcome.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda, Mr. Doyle, is the Ulster County Public Safety Radio Tower proposed for 35 Quarry Road in Saugerties. The county proposes to construct a 180-foot public safety radio tower on property that is owned by the county of Ulster in the area of Quarryville, town of Saugerties. The county is seeking determination under the Monroe Balance of Public Interest test for this facility. So it is different from most of our variances, either use or area. This is a determination of a balance of public interest. This is a continuation of the public hearing from December 7th, 2020. Mr. Dennis Doyle, the director of the Ulster County Planning Department, will now present some additional facts about the proposed facility. After that, I would ask that our planner, Dan Schuster, and our RF engineer, Ron Grafe, if he's here. Are you here, Ron? He may be here. To make any comments or ask any questions that they have. Following that, I will ask for any questions or comments from the members of the zoning board. Finally, I will open this continued public hearing to the public. Mr. Doyle, you're on.
Thank you, Ms. Gober. I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me? Just
Yes.
somebody raise their hand and say yes? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. We also have with us tonight, Steve Peterson is here from our emergency management department. We also have representatives from CNS engineers, our design engineers. Eric Kenna is here, as well as I think I saw Ed Wright from CNS engineers. We also have two representatives from our RF engineers from Motorola. Antonio Ferrone is here. He can speak to the issues with respect to the report that was done with regard to EME exposure. And we also have, I'm sorry, Will Massey is here, and he can talk about some of the coverage questions that you've been asked, have asked in the past. And we did provide, my apologies to the board, we did provide some late photo simulations.
Very late.
From the balloon flight that we did on the 18th of this month. And so I guess, where would the board like to start?
I think I would like to start, Doyle, with the late simulations that you provided, which we could not download. I'm sorry.
I think Kevin was able to download them. I recognize the fact that you may have had problems, but I think Kevin was able to download it. I'm not sure what happened with respect to your files. I did resend them, and we will put them up on the website as well, so they're downloadable then. It's a fairly large file. Kevin, can you open that file for me?
Yes, I can. You want it now?
Thank you.
Kevin, this is Patty. Ron just sent an email saying that he's here and he wants to know if you can hear him.
Yeah, I chatted back privately to him that I cannot.
Okay, we're getting that feedback again.
That's on Dennis's end. I'm not sure if the speaker is close to the mic, but that's from his. Let me get this up here. Okay. And we see that.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Is that good, Dennis?
Thank you, Kevin. So I'm going to show you, these are a series of pictures. There's about 13 visual simulations. There's about 30 some pictures here. The visual simulations, wow, I'm sorry about the feedback, folks. I don't know what to do about it. The visual simulations will start at the end of Church Road. And this is Mr. Cornitz's property. And what we did is we did a look through, because of our need to essentially use a particular lens in order to get accurate readings. We did a series of pictures that ran from basically south to north on the site. So this is a picture looking south on the site. We also flew two sets of balloons. One of the sets of balloons was in the original proposed location. We also took a look at another location on the site, which would move the tower north. Move the tower south to the site and set it opposite a undeveloped piece of property that adjoins the county site. And we took a look to see whether or not there were any advantages to that location versus the proposed location. And we'll let the board draw its own conclusions relative to the visual simulations. So this is a visual simulation looking south or southwest from Mr. Cordich's property. If I can get the next, and this takes a look at putting the, if you could back up one, Kevin, I apologize. So you can see that this is the proposed antenna. And if you see this is labeled on the bottom right-hand corner, it's called option 2. So option 2 essentially takes a look at, this is the alternate site that the county's identified on the site. It takes a look at the tower from that location. If you could move to the next, Kevin. This is looking directly west from Mr. Cordich's property. It's not a panoramic view, but it does look directly west. Gives you a sense of what's visible from either option if you look directly west from his site. And you can see that neither tower location is visible from this particular location. And then if we look further north, just to the northwest of this on the next picture, Kevin. So this picture basically said you can see the balloons in the middle of this picture. You can see the balloons there, and we'll do a photo simulation that shows what happens when you, this is the proposed site, when you add the tower into that site. So if you just click again, Kevin, it'll come up. So that'll give you what the tower looks like from Mr. Korich's property, and that is the original location. Any questions on that? We'll go to the next set of pictures.
Jeannie, you're muted. I had to mute you. You have feedback with Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Doyle? I'm sorry, I'm getting echoes. That would be where the orange or red balloons were flown? Is that correct?
I'm trying to, that's correct, Jeannie. That would be where the red, this is the original location. You can see it. It's listed on the photo as option 1, bottom right-hand corner. Option 1 is the original location.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I did go up during the balloon flights and saw the balloons from various properties. Thank you. I will now unmute so I won't echo.
So the next one, Kevin, if you can. This is the adjoining site at 60 Church Road. You can see the yellow balloons almost right smack dab in the middle of the picture, again looking south, a little towards the southwest. And if you could click that again, we'll give you a photo simulation. You can see that antenna come up in the middle of that. That's again option 2, which is the alternate location, looking southwest from 60 Church Road. Next one, Kevin. So this is looking directly west from 60 Church Road, and you can see that again, the area where we're looking in this directly west is neither location is visible. Again, I would repeat, this is not a panoramic view, but it gives you a sense of what the lens will pick up in order for us to make the appropriate comparisons. So looking to the northwest is the next one, Kevin. So you can see the red balloons almost again right in the middle of the picture, looking to the northwest from 60 Church Road. This is option 1, or the original location. If you click it again, Kevin. And that's what the existing the proposed tower would look from in the original location. Any questions on? Okay, we're going to go to the next location, Kevin. So this is a location looking at 24 Church Road, and the balloon is not visible from this location. It's looking directly west, and neither location, as I recall, is visible from this location, but let me just check. What's the next one look like, Kevin? All right, so, and this again is 24 Church Road, and you can see that the balloons, neither location for either option 1 or option 2 are the balloons visible. Next location, Kevin. This is 24 Church Road. You're looking at option 2. You can see that the balloons are not visible at this location at 24 Church Road, option 2. Next one, Kevin. And again, this is 24 Church Road, option 2. You can't see the balloons in this location either. Option 1, I will tell you, is not visible either. It's further to the right of your photo, and it's not visible at that location either. Next one, Kevin. This is 1115 Church Road. And this is looking at option 2. And you can see that option 2 is not visible from this location. And option 1, the preferred location, is not visible from this particular location as well. Next one. We're looking at 12 to 15 Church Road. This is option 1, looking to see whether option 1 is visible from this location. It's not. Next one. This is looking at right at the entrance to Church Road. So it's a road photo. It looks back to see whether either option 1 or option 2 is visible. Option 1 is not visible, and if option 1 isn't visible from this location, option 2 will not be visible either. Any questions on those? Okay. Next one, Kevin. This is photo 14. Again, it's on Church. It's a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a little bit on Church Road. This takes a look at to see whether option 1 is visible. So this is a similar location to where we were. It looks at option 1 to see whether it's visible. It's not from this particular location. Next, Kevin. So now we've moved up. We've moved up to the intersection of Church Road and Harry Wells Road. You can just see Harry Wells Road coming in on the bottom of your left hand of the screen. We're looking north into the site to see whether any of the options are visible. Option 2 is not visible from this location. Next one, Kevin. And again, this is a similar location from where we were now and looking at to see whether or not option 1 was visible, and option 1 is not visible from this location either. Next, Kevin. This is at the entrance to the site. This is right on at the sitting on Old Route 32, looking into the site from 35 right at the entrance to Quarryville Road. You can see the yellow balloons right in the middle of your picture, and just above the power lines, just below that, you can see the original option 1, the original location, and the red balloons in those locations. So option 2 basically is about 1,200 feet from the roadway, and option 1 is about 2,000 feet from the roadway. So we're looking at those 2 sets of balloons. Next slide, Kevin. This is option 1, which is the original location. And you can see this closely matches the work that it's a fairly decent picture relative to the work, the original photo sims we gave you. It's a little bit different location. It actually looks deeper into the site than we were in the original location, which is further to the west of here. And then option 2, Kevin. And this what happens when you're about 800 feet closer to the site as compared to option 1. And Kevin, if you want to toggle those, I'd appreciate it. If you could go back one. Option 1, which is the original, there you go. I would add that this is a commercial location. That's a commercial building that you're looking at. And the views into this site from Old Route 32 would be passing views. They wouldn't be views that you would essentially have a long look at relative to moving past the site. Any questions on those? Next site, Kevin. This is at 18 to 66 Church Road. It's moving along the street. It looks back into the site to the north. Option 1 and option 2, they're not visible on this from this particular location. Next slide, Kevin. This is Quarryville. It's the United Methodist Church. And this is looking at option 2, which is about 720 feet away through the tree line. You could just barely make out the balloons through here, but there is some visibility in this location from the back. This is from the back parking lot of the church. at the Methodist Church, but you can just make out some balloons are almost in the center of your picture. If you can do the next slide, the next piece that should come up, Kevin. There you go. And so the feeling would be is that when there's leaf on, that this tower would be pretty well screened from this particular location during leaf on. But you get a sense that the tower at option 2, which is an alternate site, would be visible from the back parking lot, the very back of the parking lot of the Methodist Church.
What about option 1?
Option 1's not visible from the church.
Okay.
Next slide, Kevin. And this is option 1 from the church, and you can see it's not visible. Next slide, Kevin. So now we're on Stay Road. We're at, I don't know the exact address on Stay Road. I think I have it in the photo log. But we're looking across the property on Stay Road, where we thought we would have visibility in this particular location, and neither options are visible from this particular location. Option 2 is not visible. Next slide, Kevin. And this is again further along on Stay Road, looking in to see whether option 1 or option 2 is not visible. Neither one are visible from this particular location as well.
And the location is the front of the house?
Yeah, these are from the road.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, Kevin. This is option 3. I'm sorry, this is on 20. This is on again on Stay Road. It's further towards the back. We're headed north on Stay Road. The photo log will give you the exact addresses for these particular photos. I did provide the photo log to the board. This takes a look to see whether or not there's some visibility. There is, I don't know whether you can see it. It says it's not visible, but there is just a little teeny tiny, you go up from the trees just to the left of the house. There are 2 red balloons that you can see. So the proposed location would be slightly visible from this. It's right in there. Thanks, Kevin. So we did not do a visual simulation from this location. We can do one if the board decides that it's needed, but there is a limited amount of visibility for option 1 from this. Option 2 is not visible from this particular location. Next slide, Kevin. Now we're all the way back we're at 55 Stay Road. We're all the way back on Stay Road. We're past the gate at the end of Stay Road. We're actually on private property in this location. And you can see almost in the middle of your photo, the red balloons from the proposed location, the original option 1 location. If you want to toggle that next, you'll see the simulation come up. That's the simulation from 55 Stay Road. It's about 1,000 feet away from that, and it looks back to the west. It looks back to the east from this particular location. And option 2 is slightly visible from this location as well. So if you go take a look on the next one, Kevin. So this is looking at option 2. You can see the balloons just to the left of that tree and almost in the center of your photo. Thank you. And they're about 1,200 feet away. If you toggle that one, Kevin. And that's the view from the end of Stay Road of the tower in the alternate location, or option 2. You want to toggle them back and forth for me, Kevin? There you go. And then if we, any questions from the board on those simulations?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so we'll move on, Kevin. This is on High Falls Road. We wanted to make sure that we went up on High Falls Road. We didn't do any work on High Falls Road in the original locations. We wanted to make sure that we took a look from High Falls Road to see whether or not there was any visibility from High Falls Road. But you can see the density of the vegetation essentially means that neither site is visible from High Falls Road. Next one. This is this is further along High Falls Road. This is actually moving north along High Falls Road. And again, you can see that the visibility here with respect back to the site for either option is blocked by vegetation. Next one, Kevin. Again, on High Falls Road, the vegetation blocks the visibility to either option. Next one, Kevin. Again, this is just saying that option 1 and option 2 are not visible. Next one, Kevin. So now we're out looking at we're right in front on Route 32 on the Knights of Columbus on Route 32. And you can see the yellow balloons are just, if you look just over the gray car over the roof, you can see that the yellow balloons are visible there. That's option 2. And that's about 1,600 feet away from that. And it's available, it's visible over the roof line of the Knights of Columbus. So we did a simulation on this site as well. Next, you want to hit the next one, Kevin? We'll see that simulation. There you go. You can see that during leaf on, a major part of this tower would be blocked by vegetation. And even with leaf off, there's significant blockage of the tower from the structure itself. Okay. Next slide, Kevin. This is up on Rivka Road. This is a location on Rivka Road. We're looking back to see whether option 2 is visible. And it's not visible from this particular location. Next one, Kevin. And this is looking again at Rivka Road to see whether option 1 is visible. It's almost about 3,000 feet away. And option 1 is not visible from Rivka Road. The board had asked me to look at that to see whether or not there was any visibility from this subdivision up through here. It does not appear to be any visibility that we can find. Next slide, Kevin. This is on Route 32. We're looking back into the site. We're almost looking a little further distance than we were in the past when we took the site on old Route 32 behind this site. And you can almost see the top of that building back in that location. It's in front of, I think it's the Bluestone Inn. It's in front of that location. You're looking back into the site. So both sets of balloons are visible from this particular location. So if you toggle that one, Kevin, we'll see the first that. So this is option 1, which is way in the back of the site. It's about 2,500 feet away. And then the next slide, Kevin, next toggle, that's option 2, and it's about 1,000 feet away. So that's the difference between about having the distance between where we are on Route 32 now versus where the original site was. This is a commercial location. The views into this site at this location from Route 32 would be transient. As cars go by, you have to look into the site to find it. And it's typical that when you do view set analysis, these types of views become less important. And contextually, it's in a commercial area. You want to toggle that back and forth again, Kevin? One more time. Okay. And I think that's the last slide, Kevin, as I recall, right? Am I correct?
Yep, that looks like it.
Yeah, I thought it was. Okay. So that's the visual simulations that we did. It shows 2 sites within there. One has some impacts closer to the road with respect to contextual, the alternative site does. Those impacts are associated with commercial locations and visibility that is limited into the site because of how the views are oriented relative to the cars going by. And alternative, which is the original location, offers some views from existing property owners that are views towards the mountain. And those property owners have been upset or concerned about those views. So that's why we took a look at the alternative site to see whether or not we could help to ameliorate some of the concerns relative to those particular property owners in the back by moving forward on the site. So that's the question. That's the visual simulations we have completed. Does anybody have any questions with respect to that?
My question would be, and again, I'm sorry about the echo. Why you chose to use yellow balloons on a overcast day? It was difficult to see them, even being there as I was.
It was just a color that the consultants have. I think it gives a true picture of whether they're visible or not through the vegetation. If that's what you're asking me, is would they be visible if we used a different color? I mean, given what we're looking at with respect to those pictures, you can zoom in pretty quickly and find those balloons. And we really didn't have a problem finding the balloons in the pictures.
Yeah, and I did not have a problem seeing some of the balloons from some of the places that you're saying are not visible, but I'm going to let the neighbors who are here speak to that. I will just pipe in and agree that I saw what they saw.
You're muted, Patty.
Patty, unmute. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Some of the neighbors, as you mentioned, might have some questions about these photographs and perhaps a different perspective. Would this be, since the photos are up, a more appropriate time to hear from those neighbors who want to ask questions about their properties?
Yes, I think it would be, unless they, anyone on the zoning board who has a question first.
You know, I would prefer to hear.
Otherwise, let's go to the public while the pictures are available.
Thank you.
This is Anthony Cordic. I'd like to speak.
Please do. Anthony Cordich.
Anthony Cordic. Yes.
And your address, Mr. Cordich?
I'm Anthony Cordic. I'm at 66 Church Road. There were the first three slides that you guys showed. First of all, I want to thank the board for arranging the second balloon test. Unfortunately, the photos taken still don't accurately reflect the visibility from the property. The photos were taken from only one location, the side deck, which is 50 feet from the southern property line adjacent to 60 Church Road. So the photos give a side angle view to the tower. My home and yard and fire pit extend northern about 40 feet. And would be at one point directly across from the proposed site, not as the angled photos show. If you stood in my bedroom and looked west, even with blinders on, you would see the tower. The northern part of my property extends approximately 600 feet, all within view of the site. From the northern edge of my yard, you would be looking southwest and still see the tower. My point is, all relative to where on the property you are standing, standing at the south edge of the 8 acres does not give a full picture. Also, if you look at the photo labeled West View, which was the second one he showed that said nothing was in view, indicates the tower is not visible. This only way the tower would not be visible west from the photo location if somebody was holding their hand up with their covering their right eye and had blinders on, or a strategically placed camera lens because that's pointing at the entrance of my property at Church Road, not straight ahead even. It's pointing towards the beginning of my property, which is about 40 feet into my property.
Mr. Cordich, may
Yes.
I interrupt you for 1 minute and
Sure.
ask if Mr. Doyle and Kevin, we could go back to the property that Mr. Cordich is speaking about, which I believe were the first and second pictures that we saw.
And
First, second,
third.
That's the first set of photos.
I think that gives us a better sense of what you're talking about.
great, I appreciate that. This is the first photo. This is looking towards the second location. This one's not as much concerned as the next photo. So if you would go to the next photo, please. So this indicates the tower is not visible. Because you're looking at the beginning of my property, first 30 feet of my property. I own 713 feet from the beginning of Church Road over to Mr. Baxter's, one of Mr. Baxter's properties over there. I sit on the ridge. So at this point, if you look at the next, if you just take a look at the tree and the mountaintop on this picture here. And now if you look at the next photo, and if you overlap that same tree to the other one, you have the whole clear view. So if you overlap that, now once you overlap that, you're looking from the left-hand side. From my picture window, that big tree is on the right side of the mountain cap over there. And it makes me a lot closer to the tower than possible. It's very deceiving on these photos. And I had the opportunity to walk around to the northern side of my house and take pictures over there. I know there was snow. I know it was a horrible day. I do understand that. But even if I stood on my driveway and took pictures straight out, I sent a picture to Kevin and this morning, and I think the board and Mr. Doyle had it, but I didn't see the picture from out my window, which shows the whole mountain range and where the tower is. I would have really liked to see him put that picture on here today for total transparency to see where the tower was and what I would be looking at every single day I came in or left my property or any part of my property. These photos are not, they're not true. They're a sham. I'm really, the bottom line, the photos are extremely misleading. And any other reason of my cause for, and another reason for my cause of concern over the integrity of the photos and the whole project. Because they're making you believe that I'm only going to see it if you're looking in one direction. But my whole property line goes 713 feet right across from there. I border the whole thing. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate your time. I'm sure you all have a copy of it because I talked to Kevin this morning, earlier today, and he said he emailed it. So I would really hope you all would take a picture, take a look at the picture outside my front window, my living room window, and see what I'd see. And hopefully you could get Mr. Doyle to put that tower in that picture and you could see how it's just going to ruin my property value and my way of life for my serenity for my senior years. Thank you very much for your time, and that's all I got to say about it, because I get agita from this. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'll gladly answer them. If not, I'm just going to listen.
I have some comments too and concerns. Is it okay for me to speak?
Early.
My name is Darlene Pedrosa and I'm at 432 Old Route 32. And actually on the presentation, there was some inaccuracy as to what the pictures were addressed as. So number 16 is actually my neighbor. Either number 16 or number 17 is me. Or 18, 16, 17, or 18 is actually my house. Let's see. It must be 18. Well, let me talk about that 16 one real quick. 16, if you look at this picture right here at 16, the tower is right to the left, even though it says it's not visible. It's looking straight on, but that's not an accurate depiction of where that tower is actually going to be. It would actually be directly to the left. And so it's completely misleading because that tower is huge on these pictures. And if this person was out there, if you just look left, that's where the tower actually will be, not straight on. So I'm not sure why the picture was taken this way. And then if you go to the picture with the yellow house and the star, the garage with the star on it, the yellow house, that's 432 Old Route 32. So that's not Church Road. And if you take a picture to the right, that's where the tower would be. So I'm not really sure why it was taken at this angle either. But I think that these pictures are not, like Mr. Cordrich was saying, an accurate depiction of where this tower is going to be. I'm not sure the reasoning behind the angles that were taken. And, you know, it was a really crappy day visibility wise. So I also think that that's kind of an interesting choice of what day they chose to do it, because that day it was snowing, it was very, very overcast, it was very hard to see, and the yellow balloons again. So it's really hard to believe in the credibility of this project when, you know, how hard is it to take multiple pictures from the angles of the properties that were in question, and the actual pictures that are shown here, it does not depict accurately where that tower is going to be. So I'm not sure how those angles were chosen, but they're not accurate. And I don't appreciate that, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Hello, okay, Tim Baxter. Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay, listen, I'll give you a little bit of my background. I have 25 years of radio experience for Central Hudson Gas and Electric. I've done many multiple microwave systems, point to point. We load low power, low band, high power radio systems
Can you
based on
speak
mobile
up? It's a little hard to
communications.
hear.
Excuse me. How's that?
Yep.
Okay, I just
Yes.
want to give you a little bit of my background. I have 25 years of radio experience with Central Hudson Gas and Electric. We build microwave towers, point-to-point communications. I'm quite versed in low band, high power radio systems. And that's my background in the radio business. I know exactly what you guys are trying to do up there. I too own property on Church Road. I have 15 acres that abut Mr. Cordage. This tower is obviously going to destroy the value of that property. Not only that, I own 15 acres on Coreyville that you can see in those pictures. That tower is in my front yard. It's going to be a detriment to the property. I spent 25 years of my life building this property and clearing these quarries and making it a nice place. And this will completely destroy the value, aesthetics of this. I don't see the necessity for this tower. Under the zoning rules, there's 3 alternate towers that can be used in Saugerties. You have the Mount Airy Tower, which is at 180 feet higher elevation. You have the Malden Tower. You have the tower behind the hot shop in Malden. This area is zone residential. It's been residential. We have suffered for years with an illegal tire dump that devalued our properties greatly. We finally have that gone. And now we're being burdened with this, which is ridiculous. The property values will be worthless. As you can see, show the photo of the end of State Road if you would. Tower 1, I mean, I will be subject to a blinking light, no, keep going. 55 State Road. So this is pretty much on the side here would be my quarry. We have a pavilion here that we sit at every day, and this would now be what I pay my taxes, outrageous to look at. Right there, right smack in the middle of my yard. Site 2 is better. I've spoken to Mr. Doyle personally about that and asked him to fly the balloon at the second site and gave them permission to go on my property so you could see the difference. That's my concerns with a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of other questions I have, but I don't know if this is the time for that, but. You can clearly see the visual impact.
Okay, first of all, Kevin, you have this gentleman's name? Could you tell us your name again, please?
Tim Baxter.
Tim Baxter, Mr. Baxter.
Yeah, I have spoken to
Thank
Kevin.
you. And this is indeed the time to ask questions and make comments. This is a public hearing.
Okay, so he stated what is the necessity? He stated that it was for mobile communications when the people get out of the trucks, and that putting a tower up would not solve that problem. You would use a repeater. You'd use a high band power repeater from the person to the vehicle, and then the vehicle will talk to the tower. So I don't really understand how that solves that problem. And what has been the safety record that you can state that has caused injury or harm to people if this tower is not there? Do you have any details of that?
So we,
You're muted, Dennis.
Yes, can we unmute Mr. Doyle? Mr. Doyle, can you unmute?
sure, I apologize. I really don't want to start answering questions in this particular format, but I would say the county is not proposing a tower that it doesn't need. We would not build a tower it doesn't need. Our radio consultants have indicated that they believe that this coverage is necessary for interoperability purposes and for both mobile and out of car communication.
Thank you. I'm not sure Mr. Baxter was at any of our earlier meetings to hear
Oh,
that.
see, I mean, well, like I said, there's, according to the stipulations of the zoning, right, all their locations for this facility and less restrictive zonings, you have 3 towers within a few miles of this proposed site that are already FCC rated towers with UPS systems, which are already provided. And there's plenty of room on that tower. Actually, that tower is 130 feet higher than the site you're proposing. I've done multiple radio frequency studies from this and propagation wave studies from these locations. It's not even a very good radio site. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. And I would ask anyone else in the public who wishes to discuss the balloon tests and the photos that we have while they're here, please, to speak up. First, you have to unmute yourself, I found. Are there any other neighbors who disagree or agree with the photos that we are seeing tonight? Okay, in that case, I'm going to.
Jeannie, I'm sorry.
One
This is
second,
Bill.
I have one more thing to say. That my only, if this was to be, if it is put through and does have to go through, I would recommend the second site. Would be less impactful on my properties.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Harrison?
Yes, and I live at 15 Church Road, and I guess there's no visibility apparently from either proposal, but I believe in speaking to Gail, and I know Jeannie, you were at her area too that day.
when she looks out directly from her porch, site number 2 is right in the purview of the mountains from her standpoint. And I'm only speaking up because I believe she's not on tonight and she's had trouble getting on. So I was kind of waiting for her maybe to speak up, but I just wanted to offer that on her behalf, that site number 2 was like directly, that was the yellow balloons were direct in her purview. Whereas the orange one of the first proposal was less disruptive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking on her behalf. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Mr. Cordage. I'd like to add that from all these photos, I would have to agree with Mr. Baxter that site 2 is the least destructive to all the neighbors. I like to stand with all my neighbors and see it totally gone. It's going to create financial hardships to a bunch of us on this thing, on this road because of it. And this all should be taken into consideration. Mr. Baxter has a property right next to me and on my northern part, and all that, his 15 acres, my 8 acres, all that other property he has on State Road, it's just you're gonna financially ruin us. And like you all know, my family's owned this property for 50 years and I've had it for about 20 myself. And to put all our time and effort and all the taxes, we'd really appreciate for the board to stand up for us for everything we've given to this town over the years. Thank you.
This is Bill Harrison again. If I might just quickly offer, thank you, Mr. Baxter, for your understanding of the technology. But I would concur that there appears to be other sites that are certainly that would not be a distraction, that are already established, albeit the county maybe doesn't own them or whatever. But thank you, Mr. Baxter, for bringing forth the issue of alternate sites, which actually would be the best alternative to this neighborhood, as has been said. I don't want any of, even though I'm not impacted, I wouldn't want any of my neighbors to be, and obviously some are going to be highly impacted, and an alternate site would be certainly better for everybody. And I still don't understand the details behind those alternate sites not being particularly selected, other than the fact that they don't own the property or something of that nature. I guess that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Okay, I have one more thing to add since everyone's opting for site number 2, if that's the worst of the two evils. I don't opt for that because that puts it like literally in my backyard. But I do wish that the board would, I know you guys do your due diligence and you have thought and you have raised some excellent points and questions. So I appreciate that. And I hope and pray that you guys continue to consider this because of the impact of the area. But site number 2 is even more atrocious to me than site number 1 because it literally brings it to the forefront of my property. So I think either way, it sucks for people all the way around.
Last comment would be
Thank you.
on number 3 was the kind of function or land use involved. This property is zoned residential. We bought the property, we've lived here in a residential area for a reason, not to be subject to this. Would be my last comment. And thank the board again for listening and to take into consideration that like I said, we've endured this tire dump for years, the devaluation of our property. We finally have it cleaned up, and this would just put us right back in the same devaluation that we're in now, which is not right, in my opinion. But thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Eric Canal with CNF Engineers. So a couple things regarding Mr. Cordage's comments. We weren't trying to act as though you couldn't see it looking west. We only have the ability to get so much in a screenshot. So by going southwest, then west, then northwest, it kind of puts that panoramic view together that we can't get in one shot. We don't disagree or dispute that the original location is very visible from his property. It's very clear. We did a photo simulation that shows it is very visible and very impactful to his property. And we don't doubt that that impact is the same anywhere on his property, that much or more of the tower is visible. And we didn't try to indicate that it wasn't. We documented that, yeah, one, what we were trying to do is show which is worse, which properties get impacted from which set of balloons from which location. So basically, what our sim showed is what Mr. Cord said. You know, location 1 is very impactful to him. 2, you know, he sees through some trees and would maybe be screened, you know, when the leaves are on. That was the point of that. We didn't need to walk all over his property to continue to show that location 1 is very impactful to him. It was very evident. As far as us purposely not taking pictures of the balloons, if we could see them, that's not how we operate. Our guys were out there in the snow and the weather on a crappy day looking for balloons, doing their best to document where this thing was from. They're not out there, if they can see the balloon to the right, turning to the left and taking a picture. That's just not the case. And as far as the day of the weather, we had to give 2 days with enough notice for Dennis to publish the thing. We had a 2-day window to go out there and get it done. So our guys drove down there in really crappy weather and went out there and worked their butts off in really crappy weather. We weren't trying to pick a bad weather day to put our people out there in nasty weather to try and hide yellow balloons. And that's would be my responses to those.
Since I was out there walking around also, I understand the day. I understand that it was done during a very difficult weather period. You had to make do with the best forecast you could get. And I do understand that. And I thank you for doing it. I want to say to the neighbors, this is not one of the zoning board's usual variance requests. This is a balance of interest of the county-owned property in the middle of the town of Saugerties. And there is previous case law called the Monroe decision that we have to follow and make a balance of interest decision on. It is not an easy decision. I have been on the zoning board for a very long time, and this is one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make. And we have not made it yet. I want that to be very clear. Are there any other comments from neighbors? Anybody else?
Yes, I have. Joseph Allen Bryant. At the last meeting, I'm pretty assured that an engineer would be able to tell us what the problems were with siting it at the alternate possible towers, Mount Airy, or the other possible towers. Is there someone here today who can discuss those problems that would prevent them from being used, other than what was mentioned, that there was a structural problem on Mount Airy, perhaps? Can that be mitigated?
So we did take a couple of things, if I may, Jeannie.
Tell me that.
Yes, please, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you. So just a couple of things that I'd want to talk about. One would be is it's important to recognize that this balance of public interest test is a is a critical consideration for this board. One of the things that we need to understand, I think we would ask you to understand is that this is literally a public safety facility. It is not a cellular facility. It's not, you know, it's not a highway facility. It is literally meeting a critical need that the county has identified with respect to its radio systems, and providing a site to essentially to do that. We have, you know, and when we look at alternative methods of providing the proposed improvements, we've tried to look at this site to see whether or not there are alternate locations on the site. But we seem to be discussing we seem to be having a discussion that somewhere else is better than here, right? And that's not what the balance of public interest test is about. The balance of public interest test is about essentially, are there locations in the zoning code that are less restrictive, where the county could site its facility, and the Mount Airy facility is in the same zoning district as this facility is. Right? So it's not a less restrictive zoning district. We have taken a look to see whether or not in the industrial zone, where you do allow some commercial towers, but not public safety towers, to see what our coverages would look like there. And we have taken a look, and we'll be able to give you a look at why the tower has to be as high as it does. We've looked at the areas that we need in order to mount our antennas and mount our communications equipment back with other towers. We do have two things. One is we have a radio engineer here tonight that can talk to the coverage issue. We also have an individual here tonight that can talk to the issue with respect to the EME situation, which the board brought up in our original discussions with respect to how far towers have to be away from buildings and structures in order to be safe from an EME to meet the FCC requirements. So I'm willing to have that discussion, or let them have that discussion with you. But I want to remind the board that this is literally about a public balance of public interest test for a critical public safety facility.
Jeannie, may I say something?
You're muted.
Muted. Yes, please, Patty.
Dennis, I want to just remind you that the past couple of meetings, the minutes have reflected that you have been asked a couple of questions by me and by others about the Mount Airy Tower. Now, the Mount Airy Tower is of interest because there's already a tower there. And in our zoning criteria, when there is already a tower, it's something that we would look at, because the public driving along Route 32 is used to it. You cannot see it from people that live up there, either on Mount Airy or Hamilville. And so it was of interest to find out whether that was a possibility. It's higher in elevation. It's the same height as the tower that you are looking at. And so the question was, is it possible to put your equipment on that tower? And if not, was there another piece of property in that area right up there that would be suitable? You said you did not have your RF engineer with you, but you would get that question answered. So that's what Alan was asking. And Jeannie specifically asked about whether or not there was enough property to build another tower. So that's why these questions are being asked. So
I understand why the questions are being asked. I am simply basically saying to you that the propriety of the questions may not come into existence with respect to the balance of public interest tests.
Okay, well, as a zoning board member, I would disagree with that, because we have on other occasions directed somebody to another piece of property because one piece of property was not suitable. So it all depends on the property. And the balancing of interest also asks whether or not we have explored alternative sites. It does not say alternative sites on the same property. So I wish you would just at least answer these questions, and then we can put it to rest.
But if you read the balance of public interest test requirements, it's alternative locations of the facility in less restrictive zoning districts. That's what the test is. It's not a site. It's not essentially, let's look at every other site where we could possibly put this. If the zoning district is a similar restriction, then we don't have to look there.
So are you saying you're not going to answer these questions?
No, I'm saying that we will look at the tower, but we don't believe that we have to find another location if it's in a similar, if it's in a similarly restricted district.
May I just
Only
speak for a
whether or
moment?
not,
In terms of the zone, a restrictive zoning, a less restrictive zoning area in the town of Saugerties, there is not one. As you said, a public safety radio tower is not allowed in any district in the town of Saugerties. So it's not a matter of finding a less restrictive.
And that's the point I think what we want to make. You know, we have concerns about the Mount Airy Tower because we know what their current costs are with respect to siting antennas on the tower. And the current cost for siting antennas on the tower would be approximately between $60,000 and $70,000 a year to Ulster County taxpayers to rent the space on that tower. We currently have money to build this tower with respect to state and federal grants, so that there's no cost to the people in Ulster County with respect to the construction of the tower.
so you have explored. You told us that you didn't even explore it because your engineer said that was not physically able to take your. So if
We
you
will take a look as to whether we're trying to see whether or not we can fit all the equipment that we need. If you look at the tower simulations that we've done, you can see that there's a substantial amount of equipment that we have to put on the tower. That takes up tower real estate in terms of the amount of height that we need. So we will take a look and have that conversation. But I can tell you, we're not willing to essentially go to a facility that is going to cost us $70,000 a year when we can build this facility essentially with no cost to Ulster County taxpayers.
And what about Mrs. Goldberg's question about whether or not there's property up there for another tower?
Again, that goes to the question of whether or not it's in a less restrictive zoning district, and it is not.
So you don't know. The answer is you don't know.
Say that again.
So the answer is you don't know if there's enough property.
Well, I can tell you that the access is along a Central Hudson right away. I know that's the case, but I wouldn't preclude the fact that we could build another tower. We may end up in a discussion about how to build another tower, which may require us to use eminent domain. And we're not willing to go through that because it is similarly situated, and essentially we run into the same issue that it's not a district that is less restrictive than the one we're proposing.
Dennis, what we're asking for is if you have information about the tower, you offered us new information today that we didn't know about at the cost. If you would document that and send it to the board so that we have this information. But your questions that are still interesting is, since the tower is 180 feet high and the elevation is over 300 feet, is it possible to put the equipment on? That's the question. I'm not asking about the cost. I'm asking, is it possible? And the other question is there enough property to build a tower there? Two questions that have been asked and can't seem to get an answer. And if you don't have it or don't want to give it, that's okay, but then you got to let us know that and let the rest of us know that.
I think what I can tell you is we're unwilling to continue to explore locations within the community that essentially are within the same districts that we're currently in and are not less restrictive.
Well, some might say.
But I will try to get you an answer relative to the existing tower facility as to whether or not there's room on that tower facility for us.
Some might say that a tower in an area that will not impact neighbors and existing properties might be something that would be worth considering. That's what and I'm finished with that then.
This is Bill Harrison. May I ask one other question?
Sure.
Yes.
Sorry. No. In terms of Mount Airy, okay, and we've been asking this pretty much from day one when we started this or became involved. And the reason is, I know it seems like they're both in. There's no least restrictive. So in other words, both sites are just as good or bad in respect to what you might look at. Okay, but if there's 9 points of the balance, shouldn't the other points that make it restrictive, like zone, residential zoning, uh, make that weight differently, because there wouldn't appear to be any residential issues in Mount Airy for everything that has already been said every time we meet. And to Patty's point, and thank you, Patty, for keeping there, we still don't have an answer that if there's additional property to build a tower where you're not renting off the existing one, or the existing one can't support the weight of these additional, all that is to, you seem to say we're not even going to consider it, when in fact the other points of the 9-point criteria are weighted against us, and yet that particular site, if it's one or the other, would seem to not have issues regarding the other impact issues that we keep talking about in every meeting that we've had regarding the Quarryville siting. The tower, whether it's option 1 or option 2, is going to impact somebody detrimentally in our neighborhood, and Mount Airy Road won't be a detriment to any neighborhood, because it's already on the top of the tower. It won't even have to be as high a tower. It's just illogical to me, or I don't know what else to say about it. But thank you, Patty, because I think you're really driving the point that we're trying to make. You got to take the whole thing in perspective. And we don't get an answer. Every time we bring up Mount Airy Road, we say, well, it's also a non-restricted zone. Like it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter to us. Thank you. That's all I'd have to say.
I just have one last thing to say too, is that keep citing that it's public safety, and then that's why it has to be done. I've asked for an example of safety, of how many people have been hurt, injured, killed by not having this tower. So if we put this tower up, how many people is it going to save? And if we haven't lost anybody now, it's really a net sum gain. Thank you.
So, I mean, I'm going to let, the key to public safety is preventing injuries, not reacting after they occur. And the tower is being posed in this location because we have significant coverage gaps in this particular location of Saugerties. So the idea of basically saying that unless somebody's been hurt, we don't need a tower is not something I think that none of the first responders are willing to accept.
That's not what I said. What I said was how many people have been hurt or injured because of the lack of this tower. If you're saying it's needed, that means there's been a cause for this.
No, I'm saying it's needed because there's significant coverage gaps in the area.
Hurt or injured, what safety concern is that? That's what I'm saying. It has specific examples of why it is needed. What day and date did this not work, that someone didn't get help that they needed?
Again,
can you give me a specific example of one day that you need to call first aid, emergency,
I can give you
a fire company, and nothing happened because you had no communications? That was my question.
I can give you specific examples where essentially coverage would not be available should there be an emergency.
Mr. Doyle, I think in partial answer to Mr. Baxter's question, you spoke before about the need for towers to communicate with each other as part of the Ulster County safety network. I probably didn't put it right. I think that is very important as part of the balancing of interests.
So we did do, Kevin, I did send you very late in the day, I sent you a coverage map that shows the coverage of, we took a look at this, whether or not we could move into an industrial district, which is adjacent to the village, versus the coverage we have here. So that you can see the coverage gaps that exist. I will do another coverage map that shows you the coverage in this area without this particular tower to show you how bad the coverage is in this particular area. But Kevin, did you get that in your email, or perhaps?
I haven't seen it.
Did you send that today, Dennis?
I just sent it very late in the day. I got it from a consultant very late in the day.
All right, let me go look. Hang on.
I have a question for Mr. Doyle. Mr. Doyle, you keep talking about coverage. I would like to know the population within this coverage that this is necessary to cover. Because if, you know, we're kind of out in the rural area here, and how many people are you talking? And I think that's what Mr. Baxter is trying to say. And he wants to know how many people have been affected by not having this now. And you just keep going around the circle, how these other places are going to be too expensive. What's the upkeep on this tower going to cost the people once it's up? I understand these towers are going up from grant, but is this grant going to guarantee our taxes are never raised because of it? And do you not want to use these other towers because it's not covered under your grant? So is it actually a necessity, or is it actually wanting to spend this grant money and distribute the wealth between whoever? That's my question.
So as we discussed in the past, the county identified significant coverage gaps in the northern portion of the county in the Saugerties area, in the Quarryville area and north, and in and around as we move down to the south. And so because of that, the county proposed a tower in this particular location to close those coverage gaps. The first responders that you've heard testify have also testified to the need to close these coverage gaps as well. So what we have on the screen now is to take a look at the coverage that we currently have. These are looking at two alternate sites. We took a look at the site where there's an existing cell tower adjacent to the village of Saugerties behind the shopping mall, where there is an industrial zone, and you do allow certain types of towers in those industrial zones. And then we took a look at the proposed site in Saugerties, and it doesn't make a difference in terms of the overall coverage, whether we're in the preferred site or an alternate site. So the first slide that you're seeing is looking at the proposed site coverage for mobile outbound. And I think Mr. Massey is on the phone with us, and he's the radio engineer that prepared these. And if he would speak to these, I would appreciate it if he's on.
Yes, Dennis, I'm here. So these maps, one is showing, as you said, the proposed site in the Church Road area, and the other one is showing one down closer to the river there. The outbound coverage, I mean, it's clearly better with the Church Road site.
What would the coverage be at Mount Airy if Mount Airy was included?
I have no knowledge of that site.
Can we get that?
Madam Chairperson, may I speak? Hello, it's Ron Gray.
Yes, Ron.
Thank you. For the record, for the participants here, my name is Ronald Grafe. I'm an independent radio frequency consulting engineer, a licensed professional engineer in New York State, and I've been working for the town with the town authorities for many, many years, as well as many other municipalities. What I'm looking for here is a demonstration of need. And I'm not going to get into your issues that you're dealing with, whatever the legal issues are. I'm only looking for an issue of need. And when I saw what you had on the website, the coverage, I said, I give up. What is that? It's nothing. It's meaningless. Zero, nothing. And when I look at this is zero, nothing. Because it appears by your OET 65 analysis, that's the health and safety analysis, which, by the way, the board cannot consider, but I will point out it was a very, very good job that was done. And thank you for the PhD who did that. He did a slam bag job. Thank you. But it was curious in that all of a sudden the frequencies utilized were there. There were 2 VHF frequencies. That stands for very high frequency. And very high frequency propagates. If the cell carriers had very high frequencies, they wouldn't have to buy anything else. The trouble is there's no bandwidth. Then there was a UHF frequency, which is not as good as VHF, but it covers pretty well. And then ultimately there was an 800, 900 megahertz system that is the one that's typically used in these trunked radio systems. And I assume that that's what this is, a trunked radio systems, although there has been no evidence presented before the board. Those are the ones that suffer the coverage anomalies, forgive me. But curiously, and this is the crazy part, the VHF antennas are located on the top of the tower. The VHF has the best coverage. The UHF antennas are located at the bottom of the tower, near the bottom, 100 feet, 100 and change feet. It's counterintuitive. So all I'm looking for in this, public safety is very, very important for me. And just for the record, my wife and I, many years, owned a communications tower in Paulding, New York, 285-foot self-supporting tower. And when the Metropolitan Transportation Authority came to us and the Putnam County new system, 800 megahertz trunk system, we gladly gave them just about unlimited access because it was for public safety. Unfortunately, you may be dealing with American Tower here or someone else, and I can understand that. And I appreciate what you're trying to do in building your own tower. But in my role in working for this board, notwithstanding all of your other issues associated with the Monroe Doctrine, I'm just looking for a demonstration of need, number one, an alternate site analysis, number two, number three, a minimum height analysis. Because from what I see that I've been given so far is that none of these questions have been answered. And I really look forward to looking at this so I can say to this board, indeed, you have what I would believe is a complete application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
I'm going to ask, well, Mr. Massey, if you would continue, because we take you through, I think this will answer some of your questions with respect to need, because we take you through the location, the proposed location and the alternate location that we looked at, so you can see the gaps in the northwest corner of Saugerties that exist.
Dennis, can you
What
please?
frequency is this? What frequency are we talking about?
This is analog VHF right here.
VHF.
Correct. Yes.
Narrow band VHF, correct?
Yes.
What? And can I just help me out here for a second? Why are you using narrow band VHF?
That's the technology that we're using for this project.
That's antediluvian. That is before the flood. Today, everyone is using 800 megahertz trunked radio systems. I mean, in a couple of years, narrow band VHF will be, let's say. Please.
Could you please tell us where this alternate location is?
Yeah, it's down it's right where the existing cell tower is as you go out of the village behind the shopping mall. There's an
You're
industrial
talking about
zone
in
in there.
in the village of Saugerties by
That's
CBS?
correct.
In the
That's
village of
correct.
Saugerties.
It's not, I don't think it may be in the village. I'm not sure. It's off of Route 212 behind the existing shopping mall. It's
Right.
up by it's up by the existing substation for.
Right. I think that may be the village of Saugerties. I'm not even sure, but I don't know where that came from, where the site came
Well,
from for a second.
we're looking at a lesser restrictive zoning district. And you do allow certain type 3, 4, and 5 towers in those districts.
Well, that's not us. That's the village. It's not the town. That's the village.
Patty, that area behind the plaza is the town.
It's the town?
Yes, it is.
What, the zoning restrictions would be the same as they are in the rest of the zoning law, wouldn't they?
Well, that's an industrial zone.
Right,
That's where the former Vertex building was.
yeah. But an industrial zone has the same restrictions or benefits in any part of the town if it's an industrial zone. So that's why I'm asking if this is the village as opposed to being the town, because we don't have that kind of distinction, do we, Jeannie? Unless I'm mistaken, we don't have that kind of difference in ours.
So one of the reasons we look at industrial zones is you do allow new commercial facilities in an industrial zone. So we thought we would take a look to see whether or not in that less restrictive zone, there was an opportunity that we could look at coverage in those areas to see what the differences would be. And so if you would let us go through those coverage maps, there's a couple of things that you can see. You can see the gaps in service that exist in the northern corner of the site, in the northern corner of Saugerties, and the reason for the tower. Now, what we will do if the board, and I think to answer I'm sorry, I didn't catch his name. I got his first name wrong.
My last name is Gray.
answer Ron.
G-R-A-I-F-M.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Thank you. We can do these coverage maps that show you what the absence of that tower means relative to the coverage in this particular area of the community. So we can run these coverages with essentially no alternate tower, but we wanted to show you what the coverages look like with the Saugerties Tower in place. So Kevin, if you could go to the next slide.
But before you do, that's a start. So just let me, so we can just define this later. What are the signal strengths that you're demonstrating here? Either in, well, this is in cellular, so it won't be RF, it's going to be microvolts or millivolts. I'm not sure what you're doing, number one. And I noticed that you also talked about mobile outbound. That's from the tower to the mobile unit, I assume. My question is then mobile inbound, do you have voting receivers to make up for that? And all of the issues here that so we can understand how you're describing this, because this green blob and this blue-green blob mean nothing to me.
So I can speak to that. The Ulster County system design is multiple sites all over the county. The outbound coverage, actually, all sites are going to transmit at the same time, which is called simulcast. The receive side, we do have maps that show the mobile talking into the sites, and that's actually what's on the screen right now.
That's inbound from the mobile unit?
Yes.
Yes. So it looks at what signal?
We run these at something called what's called VHQ 3.0, which is a delivered audio quality, and it's based on how we're software predicting the audio quality at the dispatch positions.
Forgive me, somewhat subjective. Can we do something that everyone can measure in microvolts per meter, millivolts per meter?
So unfortunately, in a simulcast system, you can have a strong signal and still have no coverage because of echoes and delays from the other sites reaching the same point at the same time.
Okay.
So signal strength isn't a great predictor of audio quality in this case.
But you're judging this on how someone at a dispatch point is going to perceive they hear someone talking to them. Is that correct?
Correct.
So in other words, if that person perceives that it may be fuzzy or it may be weak, then that would result in a weaker quality of service, as opposed to someone who said, I can hear them. You know, in the old days, we used to say, I hear you 5 by 5 or 5 by 3. I mean,
Correct.
Is that what you're talking about here? This is purely subjective.
This is based on subjective audio, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
And I can give you the definition of what a DAQ3 is if you wanted it this time, or.
Sure, I think that's a good idea to put that in the record.
Right. So let me get the tried and true verbiage on it so I don't mess it up. 1 second.
I would mess it up, I guarantee you. You know, listen, Mr. Massey, if you don't have it now, I don't want to hold up this meeting. Just maybe you could email that to me and then I can comment to the board later. Please, let's not hold up these poor people. Okay, I don't want to.
No problem. Sorry. Yep.
I'm sorry.
I have my interns in the background. I was trying to deal with them. I apologize.
I was going to suggest that you put it in writing and send it to the board and Ron. Anyway, it was much easier than trying to transcribe it from the video.
I agree. Thank
you
very much. Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
So Kevin, can we move to the next slide then?
So this is showing what a portable on the street would perceive from outbound from the tower to the subscribers, portable subscribers.
Oof. Now, Mr. Massey, have you propagated this in what your perceived signal strength would be from? And you know, quite frankly, I'm kind of new to this. I've been doing cellular applications at Saugerties for many years now, but I don't know about the alternate sites there, where they're located, what heights might or may not be available depending on cost, as Mr. Doyle has pointed out. But do you have any alternate demonstrations of what this and what the coverage from other side or the lack of coverage from other side might be?
So you're asking if we just completely take the Saugerties site out of the equation altogether? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, I'm looking at blue, and I assume that is existing portable.
No. So the blue the coverage map on the left, it's the kind of bluish purple color, is utilizing the alternate site in the village of Saugerties.
Wait a minute, my thing says proposed site.
Okay, the proposed site is a greenish color coverage, and it is using the site on Church Road.
And then the alternate industrial zone adjacent to village, what is that?
That's the, you're asking, is that the coverage from, provided by using that site? That's what that coverage map is.
I thought that might be the existing coverage.
No, it's not the existing coverage.
So where is the existing coverage? Can we see that?
I don't have those maps.
Well, okay. I think just as a matter of establishing a record here for the board, it would be helpful if they knew what the existing coverage is versus the proposed coverage from this industrial zone site, and I know nothing about that, I'm sorry, as opposed to the proposed site. That's the only one I focused on in this application. So I think that might help the board in saying, okay, look at that. There, whether there is no coverage there or there is a lot of coverage there, and look at this, it makes it all green, or look at this one, it's just blue. It just helps a board in understanding, and I go back to that word, need. Okay?
Agreed. Thank you. And anything you can put in writing or send to us is helpful. The WebEx is wonderful, but it is very difficult to transcribe accurately, to get accurate minutes so that we have a record of everything that is said in the meeting.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. It would be very helpful at the conclusion of this that any of the propagation plots that are shown, no matter what they are, besides what I saw on the website, which you can explain later, if you could send PDFs of those to me so that they could be reviewed offline without taking up anyone's quite valuable time this evening. I will do that offline, okay? And I'll give you my email address, or the chairwoman can give you my email address, or chairperson, I'm sorry.
Dennis, I mean, is that something you can distribute? I believe I've already sent them out to you guys.
Yeah, I think the only thing we'd have to do, Mr. Massey, is we'll have to run the coverage with and without the Saugerty site, and don't worry about putting the alternate site in. So we'll just run it with and without the alternate site, the same propagation stuff that you've given me in the past, and we'll pass that on. And what I would do, Ron, is I'd propose that we send everything through Kevin, the board secretary.
Yep, that's the best way to do it. And if there are any other frequencies involved, like the 450 megahertz, we haven't talked about that yet, or the 800 megahertz, we haven't talked about yet, or the microwave frequency, we haven't talked about that yet. There are at least, and by the way, I got this all from that expert OET65 analysis that defined the antennas, their location on the tower, their power, the frequencies. It was really quite helpful to me. That was that really got me saying, okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. So if you have any of that, it's going to be so helpful in demonstrating the need that I believe you have. And I'm just going to look at that as objectively as I can, because that's what I do.
Right. Hey, Ron, I can answer the question on what those other frequencies are for. The UHF, the 800, the 700, those are all national interop channels.
So that's what you use to handle traffic between Ulster County and Orange County, or whatever the county next to Ulster is, or Dutchess County. And those are your interoperational ones that maybe are part of the Alert Now one network, First Alert.
I'm not sure about First Alert, but I mean, I know they are used to, what I've seen them used for mostly is interop between say someone coming in from another county into your county, or for agencies to talk between different agencies within the county.
So, Mr. Massey, then would you characterize then the need for you is just if you could put those in an order, the most important frequencies for you to have coverage in this area are frequency A, which may be VHF, frequency B, which may be UHF, or frequency C, which be the SHF. And then, I mean, please, so the board can then say, okay, this is what they really need. You know what? Just so they have full disclosure. We don't know anything about your system. And the more we can that you can tell us would be quite helpful.
Right. Is that a question for right now, or is that, I mean,
No.
Okay.
Once again, as they build, you know what? I don't know where this is going to go tonight. If the board's going to say, you know what, we've determined that, whatever. I'm just looking for so I can have a complete record if they ask me any questions in the future. So all of that you can propose to send that to Kevin, or distribute it any way you want to, and then give me your contact, and we can always chat about this offline too. So it's not taking up anyone else's time. Okay.
Understood.
So if I can, Jeannie, can we just move to the one next? So we got one more slide on this. That's one of the things I wanted to show.
Yes, please do.
All right, so this is the portable inbound talking to the sites. Using the two different sites.
On VHF.
On VHF, yes.
But you said that the coverage anomaly was to the northwest of the town. Did you not?
Say that again?
Didn't you say that the coverage anomalies were to the northwest of the town? In your opening statement? Or Mr. Doyle's opening statement? Hello?
I'm still here. I'm trying to understand what you're asking.
Well, when I thought I heard, you know what? If I mute myself, I won't be able to talk. Maybe someone else has got their mic open. I had thought you had said that Mr. Doyle said there was a coverage anomaly to the northwest.
So I mean, we're showing different versions of different configurations of mobile versus portable coverage. I mean, I'm just showing you the difference between these two sites. I mean, that's kind of what I'm showing here. I mean,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Just so you know, you'll know that the zoning board is still here in Echo. Dan, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or George? Anyone else on the zoning board?
Yes, Jenny, I have a question. It's Henry.
Please, Henry, go ahead.
Yeah. With all the controversy of the towers, who can see it, who can't see it, and I can understand it 100%. I think if any one of us sat there and that was our homes or our property over the years, I think we would feel the same way. That all being said, it's been brewing in me for 2 months now. If the county didn't own this property, where would be the best location? Because that's with everything being said, that's what Dennis keeps on coming back to. Well, because of this district, that this, we all know that. I mean, that's a given. So the only reason that they're pushing this here is because the county owns that piece of property. If they didn't own that, ideally, would that be the best piece of property? I don't believe so.
Good point, Henry.
So from Ulster County's perspective, we didn't get to this piece of property because we owned it. We got to this piece of property because of the lack of coverage in the area that we're talking about. And when we looked around, we thought that this was a good location. And we don't have, you understand something. It's not a question of finding the quote, the best location. It's finding a location that doesn't have a significant impact on the environment. And we believe that we found that location.
You may have found the location not on the environment, Dennis, and I'm not arguing that. But what I see happening, and you would be there and saying the same thing if you live there. Would you want this tower looking out your back window, front window, side window, whatever view you have on a piece of property that you've had for 40, 50 years in a residential area? I mean, that's ultimately what the people are complaining, and that's what the controversy is over. And all I'm saying is, why can't we find, when I say we, the county, find a piece of property that's not going to be a detriment to the people around it? And that's really what this whole controversy is over. It's not over the fact of the tower, the coverage, everything else. It's over what people are going to see aesthetically. So maybe if you can kind of put that in your equation, maybe you can factor in a little bit more instead of saying, okay, this is what the county owns, this is a good piece of property, it's a good location. I'm sure there's other locations, is my point, and that's what other people are saying. Those have to be Mount Airy, where you have to pay rent, get another piece of property, put the tower up under the grant. The county owns that piece of property now, and don't have to pay $60,000, $70,000 a year.
You're
I'm
muted,
listening.
Dennis.
Thank you,
Dennis.
Henry.
Dennis, I'm muting you when you're not speaking.
Thank you. So I just want to go back to the jurisdiction of the board relative to a balance of public interest test. I mean, I understand where Ron's coming from with the idea relative to making sure that we've established the need for the site. And we think that we can do that. We think, quite frankly, that the alternate coverages that we just shown you tonight shows you that there are significant portions of the northern portion of Saugerties that's not covered. With respect to the one of the alternate sites that we looked at, and certainly once we take this site out of it, there's going to be even more of the area that's not covered. And we'll give you those coverage maps. But the idea that essentially that we have to find a site that, that somehow we have to find an alternative site that the county may be in a better location than this, is we believe this is a decent location. We believe that we've been able to essentially demonstrate that by moving the site, we don't impact the adjoining neighbors as much as the original preferred site, and that the areas that we do impact are commercial in nature. And so we think that we can make the test that this is not a site that has a significant impact on from a visual perspective with respect to what we're proposing. And I want to go back and say that this is literally a life and death decision-making process that we're engaged in here. We're not trying to build something that essentially move around and be looked at in other locations as being as appropriate as this site is. And the county has gone through a significant amount of effort to essentially provide the necessary environmental work and visual work so that the board can make its decision. And I go back to taking a look at these tests, and every time I get asked about alternative sites, I bring up the issue that the alternative sites that we would look at would be ones that are less restrictive in the zoning statute. And then the last thing I would want to say is we're going
right back to the
demonstrate. Well, because that's what the statute says. I'm not going back to the same thing because I don't want to go. I want you to basically pay attention to what the statute and what the rules say. That's what I'm asking you to do.
We understand what the rules say, Dennis.
Well, then you wouldn't be asking me to take a look at alternative sites if they're in the same zoning district that this site is.
If that makes it less controversial, why wouldn't you take a look at other sites?
I'm not sure that a different site wouldn't be as controversial.
That's the only reason that you keep on coming back to that. I mean, you could twist it any way you want, but that's in effect what you're saying, and that's what I'm hearing you saying, and that's what everyone else is hearing you say. And I'm not looking at the county spend more money. I'm saying, okay, you know, let's try to satisfy the public and the homeowners. Look for a spot, a piece of property that may be in the same area. It might be a quarter of a mile up the road, but it's not going to be an eyesore for the people.
I dispute the characterization that the site's an eyesore.
Well, guess what, Dennis? Put your house there, and you look out the back window and see that tower sticking up, and you tell me that that's very appealing to you. I mean, come on.
That's why we did a look at an alternative site on this location.
Yeah, so you moved it, which I see what you've done. So you've taken and proposed site 2 does seem better from the photos that you supplied to me, as you know, looking at it from the photographs. But then you're going to still impact a few people down the road that, you know, you're going to take it out of one backyard and make it look worse in another backyard. That's pretty much what you did. And believe me, I'm not criticizing that. You tried to move it to satisfy a whole, you know, a common consensus. Well, the consensus still seems that it's not wanted. It's an eyesore, and that's what I'm hearing. Just are you okay? Listen, instead of beating this thing to death, why not at least entertain looking at, if it's not the county property, look at a piece of property to say, well, okay, listen, we can get the same coverage, better coverage, and we're not going to impact people that have to look at it every day. I mean, that's really what I'm throwing at you. But
you think it's possible to get that picture brought back up? That's on State Road 50, the end of State Road. I'd like Mr. Dennis Doyle to explain to me how that's not an eyesore. That's very insulting. The guy would even say that. I would like to see that picture again, please.
Are you?
I think what we said is that one of the reasons we looked at an alternative site was because the
let's go back. You just said it wasn't an eyesore.
I didn't say that the
Yes,
entire site wasn't an eyesore. I simply said that we looked at another location that was less impactful with respect to some of the direct views from the adjoining properties. That's what I said.
Oh, you said it was not an eyesore.
I said I didn't like the characterization that the project was an eyesore.
No, you said you deemed it was not an eyesore.
I don't think this is helpful at all. I think the photo simulations speak for themselves.
Oh, this is Bill Harrison. Could I just say one thing, please? We've been asking since October. We understand the public need, no problem. We understand it has to be somewhere, understood. And I think it's been said numerous times, I know it has, that Mount Airy Road is not a distraction to anybody because it's at the pinnacle of the mountain that already has a tower. I would like, and I know it's been brought up since October, every meeting, why can't we do a coverage from Mount Airy Road to see that in fact it meets not only the coverage criteria, but it doesn't impact anybody, which has already been stated numerous times. It might have been possibly, well, let's take some pictures over here in the residential area. But if you put it on the top of the mountain, you don't even have to take pictures. There's already a tower, a precedent. And let's see, I'd like to see a coverage from that point and then see if that meets your criteria, because it would certainly meet everybody in Quarterville's criteria if it's on Mount Airy Road. And I'm really tired of hearing that's not an obligation of the county. Thank you.
From what I remember also, the county does rent tower space in other areas. So the argument that it's going to cost the taxpayers, there's precedent for that in other areas of the county. So that's another reason to look at the Mount Airy Tower. And also the fact that while it's not a less restrictive zone than the industrial zone, the impact on people's property is not there. So I agree with what Bill is just saying.
But the truth is, you wouldn't have to go on Mount Airy Tower if you found a piece of property that was.
Put down on this. We're gonna do going around in circles. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, Dan, I can't seem to find a way of muting you, so you may want to mute yourself.
Jeannie, are there any other comments? If not, maybe we could just move on.
Are there any other comments? Dan, did you?
Can I just get a couple? Can you hear me?
Yes.
There's a couple of points. We've covered a lot of territory here, but it's been alluded to. But I think what you want to get is a analysis or documentation that Dennis says can be provided, which indicates why the tower has to be 180 feet, which is something which affects the views and a few other things. I think you ought to have that information. Secondly, in terms of visual impact, there are some standards by which visual impact is usually measured. It's incorporated in the seeker regulations, and it's primarily geared to the effect on sensitive sites, as opposed to just sites in general. Historic and cultural sites, park and recreation sites, scenic roads from which something like a tower can be seen, and what the impact is on those is the higher threshold in terms of identifying visual impact, which is not to say that there may be some concern for other impact from other viewpoints, but those that I mentioned are the ones that are most important. Looking at the register that the county prepared, there are relatively few. I think there's only one historic site on that list. So I think the board ought to be aware of that and take it into consideration as it does its work. And lastly, we talked a lot about coverage, what areas are covered now, what will be covered, and this, you know, the maps in some cases are not as clear as they might be. But assuming that, I think what's looking to be identified is those areas which will get coverage in the future by this proposal, which do not have coverage now. I think it would be helpful to gear the maps that way to identify those. And I'm wondering if there's a process or some accepted conventions which analyze those areas in terms of essentially how much activity there is within them that will benefit from getting coverage which doesn't exist now. You know, the number of homes, the number of vehicles on the roadways which go through it, other ways of differentiating between 500 acres in the middle of no place versus a developed area. I think that's part of the balancing of interests, is how extensive the benefit is from adding the areas which do not presently have service. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Dan. That's helpful. Okay, unless someone else has something to add at this point, I will tell you that I was going to ask for a motion to end the public hearing tonight until we got a lot of more new information late today. I don't think this is a good place to end a public hearing. So we are going to, I will make a motion to continue the public hearing on April 5th.
I'll second that,
I
Gene.
second that, Gene.
I had 3 seconds.
Okay, pick one of them.
I'm going to say Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion before we decide to keep the public hearing open on this, so that we have time to absorb the new information?
Was Ron waving his hand? I can't hear you, Ron. You're muted.
You're muted. I think he wants help. You can't unmute him, Kevin?
I cannot. No.
I just did. Okay. It finally just one part of the discussion, if I may. If there are any other evidential coverage maps supplied pursuant to what your expert planner has just pointed out about areas of where there may be something or where there may be nothing, it's usually best in things like this where people are really concerned about where is the coverage, where is not the coverage. It could be over a big desert or a lake or whatever. Many times the carriers, as you know from our past reviews, have utilized 7.5-minute topographic maps from the USGS, as opposed to the street maps, which are really useless because the scale is so large or small, as the case may be, however you look at that. But for your board to look at a critical analysis for need, and I know a company like Motorola, who is the engineering behind this, and they do a terrific job in other applications I've reviewed, can prepare things like that only so your board has all of the information it might need in the future to try to make a decision, and also for Ulster County to make a great presentation that will be without question. And it simplifies the process, I think. So use as great a detail as map as you can, and USCGS are really, really good in doing this because you can hone down into a very small area on that, as you've seen in cellular applications, and then decide what's the coverage differences, because to me, I think, is there a need? You bet. I mean, there can't help but be need in this because it's a county public safety system. But is the need part of this site or an alternative site? Or I think for many of the people who have talked tonight, a site that doesn't have to be this tall. And one final comment. In your presentation on the website, you show what the tower looks like. And let me go back to that. I think it's called a typical tower design, which is basically, that's a Roan SSV tower at 180 feet. Fine. I think it's important if they could then and put on all the appurtenances. In other words, the two antennas up at the top, the VHF antennas, then the UHF antennas beneath that, and then the microwave antenna, and then anything else that they might have on the tower, the transmission lines, getting the signals up there, so that people can really see what it might look like. I mean, that is the ultimate presentation of not just to show me a naked tower, but let's see what it looks like when it has junk on it, okay, or stuff on it, forgive me. That might be helpful to your board also. Maybe not, but by this way, by including as much evidence as they can demonstrate to you that this will not be an impact on the community. As I said, we've done this before, and I think it will help everyone in trying to come to the realization of what's needed and how it's needed. Okay, thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you. Now, we have a motion on the floor, and it was seconded to continue the public hearing till April 5th. I would ask for an amendment to the motion to accept comments from the public until March 15th. That's a little earlier than usual, but I want the board needs time to go through comments from the public and synthesize and attempt to make a decision on this power. So I'm going to do a voice vote. Patty?
Yes.
Joe? Joe, are you still here? Joe, we are voting on continuing the public hearing till April 5th. I don't hear Joe. Tim is still here. Tim?
Yes.
Hear me? It's Joe.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I vote yes.
Okay. And Henry?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We will be continuing the public hearing, so we will see you all next month. April 5th is our next meeting.
Thanks for your patience, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Before we close the meeting, although I'm going to tell you that all we're going to do is vote on the minutes. So anyone who wants to leave may, or you may stay. Would someone make a motion to vote or to accept and approve the minutes for the February ZBA meeting?
So moved.
A motion by Patty.
Second.
Second by Tim. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
The minutes are approved for February. They are on the town website under ZBA minutes. And they soon will not say draft. Okay, I will now ask for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Patty moves.
Look at that.
I'll second.
Joe seconds.
Yay.
Are there any objections? If not,
God.
say aye.
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 Aye. Good night, all, and thank you for your attendance and your patience.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice having you. Good night.
guys.
Good night.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
And everyone.
Dan.
Goodbye.